again to this webinar. It's about administering the summative assessments that are coming. You can give now until June. So we're going to give you information about that. And Heather will be presenting today, and I am going to be answering, not answering questions, but seeing if there are questions and asking Heather. Evelyn Chester from Cambium and Tom Glorfield are also here, and they can answer questions, technical questions that we have no idea how to answer. And I think Melissa White is here. She's from the DOE. So if we have questions that are DOE related, we will ask her. So thank you to the DOE for sponsoring this and a million other webinars in this past year. And thank you to all the teachers who are teachers and administrators, everybody involved with the schools who are really stepping up this year and just on a flash, just changing what they're doing and then changing again. So it's been amazing, really. During the webinar, everybody will be muted. At the end, if you have some questions you want to ask in person, we'll unmute you. You just raise your hand. We'll tell you when to do that and how. Please ask questions. If you have questions now, you can start entering them into the Q&A part of the webinar of Zoom. If you enter them into the chat, we may miss them. But if you have something you want to say to everybody, you can enter it into the chat. So if you have questions, please put it in the Q&A. Thank you. Hello. We have one Q&A that says hello. We will have a brief survey at the end. So it really is very helpful if you give us some feedback. So the next time we do this webinar, we'll just put in your whatever you've given us for feedback, we'll add it in or take it out. Tomorrow, we'll send you an email that has this PD certificate. It'll have any documents that Heather talks about today and a PowerPoint, this PowerPoint presentation that Heather is showing right now.
All right, so this is where I sort of take over here. Just a little gentle reminder, you are not alone, specifically when it comes to the New Hampshire SAS Summative Assessments and administering them this year. So here are some of the folks. Ann and I are here right now doing this webinar. We also have a link to the Department of Education Office of Assessment. There's lots of folks there that can help you. Again, Melissa White is here on this webinar, so she is one of those people. And then the Cambium Help Desk. This is one, this number is on almost every screen that you will see in the New Hampshire portal, the SAS portal. They are amazing. They will answer your phone calls right away if you call that number. And then the help desk, that email there that you have, they're very quick at getting back to you about specific issues. Again, Ann and I are here as well, but if it's something that you need immediate attention with, I would call the Cambium help desk right away. So I'm going to right now turn off my video. It does distract me just a little bit, and we'll kind of keep moving through. So our goals for today is we're going to answer the following questions. We're going to talk about some of the requirements for the New Hampshire SAS assessment, specifically the summative assessment today. We're going to talk about how you administer them. The interim and modulars, we're going to kind of skip over that today. We really want to concentrate on the summatives since we're so close to when folks are administering those. So we're going to really concentrate on those. I'll show you how to print some test tickets and just general information about some of the accommodations. So the first thing I want to talk about are the requirements for spring 2021. So right now, the U.S. Department of Education is requiring all states to administer their summative assessments this spring. So I say that because I think a lot of people are just assuming that it's the state of New Hampshire. It's all states. It's the U.S. Department of Education that's requiring that. So the other thing is that the summative assessment administration window, it's been open since March 8th and it goes through June 11th. They are required to be administered in person. So we are trying to get as many students in the building as possible to administer the assessment, and also it needs to be administered with a secure browser. That is one of the reasons why it's really important to get the students in person as well. You have to proctor these assessments. So the at-home assignment or a non-proctoring portions of the New Hampshire SAS portal are not available for the summative assessments. And the recommendation from the New Hampshire DOE is that you wait until the May timeframe to allow for as many students to return to in-person instruction. We obviously know that recently there's the mandate for all of students to be have the option to come in full-time for whatever that means for your school district, the full-time. And so hopefully we'll be able to get a lot more students in there as well. So there's two different certifications that you need or that are available in the portal. You have to do the certification to be able to administer the summative assessments. So the test administration certification is the one that you've done for years and has always been mandatory for you to do before you can open test sessions and get into the portal. There was also the remote TA certification course that was available this year for the remote option. That's not going to be used for the summatives. So the one that you just want to make sure that you go through is the original test administration certification. And just so you know, if you took these certifications at all this fall when you did the interims, or you've taken them throughout the year because you're giving modular assessments, you don't have to do it again for the summatives. You just do it once for this particular school year. So you don't have to do it again. Just in case you haven't done it, this is how you get to the certification. You go to the portal. Here is the link to the portal. If you just type New Hampshire SAS into Google, it's the first thing that comes up. So it will bring you to this screen here. You're going to choose test administration. And here's that 9-box page. It's got both the remote TA and the test administration certification, but we're just going to choose this one here. It wants you to log in. If you have problems logging in, it could be because you haven't logged in a while and it sends a code to it might ask you to fill in a code that goes straight to your email address. Check your spam if for some reason you don't see it right in your inbox. And if you completely forget your password, you can do this request a new one for this school year. Maybe you haven't logged in yet. This is the first time you're logging in. So there's a couple of different avenues you can use. You can also, if you just forgot it, choose this area here. So you do need to log in. And then it will have this option here, and you're just going to click start, and it will go right through that certification that you'll watch the video and then answer the questions at the end. So there's a couple of options for administering the summative assessments.
Can I ask a couple questions before we get going?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
One person has asked about the hundreds chart for math. Is this something that third graders can use, or just 4 through 8? And
that's one of the accommodations that can be used. I'll be talking about accommodations at the end, but
it isn't for third grade, just so it's not just 4 through 8, right?
Okay.
And then there's another question that we may need Tom and Evelyn. Will students taking the 11th grade science test need to bring headphones? The manual suggests they are needed, but when we call in the past, they were told there isn't an audio component.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm double checking on that. We typically say headphones are decent to have because it is an adapted test. So if for some reason that student gets a item that has a listening item on it, the headphones would be necessary. But I'm verifying if grade 11, if the bank has any listening items for grade 11 science. So As soon as I hear back, I'll let you know.
Great, thank you. And those are all the questions right now.
Okay. So the two options that you have for administering the summatives this spring are, here are the options here. I'm going to go through the two options that we have. The first one is an active session. So this is a session that starts immediately, and you automatically join it, it opens up right away. So this is the one that you are doing right when you're starting to administer the assessment in your classroom. It stays active until you stop or leave the session. And then the students use a secure browser because the URL is not available for summatives. The upcoming session portion is you can schedule it for a date range or up to a 2-week window. They again use a secure browser. You have to join the session. This has been one of the biggest issues with people creating the upcoming session instead of an active session is they forget to join it. And then the last thing is that this session is active until you stop or leave it. So I'm going to go through how you are going to administer the summatives with each one of these options here. The first one, again, we're going to go to test administration, the New Hampshire portal.ast, and then test administration. Here's our 9-box page. So right now we're going to go in and we are going to open up a test window. So we're going to go to test administration. You're going to log in. And then here we are with the options again. You can see there's the active session. We have an upcoming session. And then this one here, this last one, the at-home assignments we cannot use for the summatives. If you wanted to do the modulars or interims and do some sort of practice or sort of benchmark assessments with your students, you can use the at-home assignments, but not for the summatives. So again, we're just talking about summatives today, so we're not going to be doing that option. So to create an active session, you're in this window here and you're going to choose active session. It's the first it's already open as soon as you get onto the portal. You will choose start a new session. And again, today we're going to choose summatives. So you're going to choose summative here. So that's the type of assessment we want to do. And then here, what you want to do is you want to use the plus sign. If you don't use the plus sign and we just choose math, it will show all of the summative assessments here on the right-hand side, which we do not want, so you can choose clear all. So the rule of thumb is if there's a plus sign, use the plus sign. So again, plus sign comes to this, then we choose an assessment. So you choose that. Once you choose it, it will have the check mark here and it will show in the upper right-hand corner. After you choose your session, where it says the session type, you are going to keep it as in person because that's what's required for the summatives. You cannot choose remote. If you did choose remote, you're going to get this particular error and it will tell you you can't use that for the summatives. So again, we choose in person and now we're going to choose start a live session. If you have ever administered the summatives in the past, this is exactly how you've done it in the past. So you're going to start that live session and you get right to this page. So by creating a live session, you get your session ID, and this is what students will need to be able to log into the active session. So here is a test ticket. It's just a sample test ticket. Your students will need the spelling of their first name as it is in the system and their SSID. So where we find that folks have a hard time is if for some reason you have a student whose name is Jonathan, but they go by John, they want to write in John instead of Jonathan, but they need to make sure that they are putting their first name in however it is in the system, and then has this SSID here. So once they get into the secure browser, they will see this, please sign in. This is where that session ID is going to become important because they need to add in all of this information here. Once they add that in, they will need to verify that it is them. So they'll say yes. And then they will have the tests that are available to them. So this is the math for 5th grade. They'll click on that. And then what happens is it will say waiting for approval. So this is where the students wait for you to be able to approve them. So back on your screen, this is what the teacher would see. On this live session, you'll see this approvals area, and this is where you would go in and approve each student. Before approving students, just you might want to make sure that if they have accommodations or anything like that, that they're correct before you approve them. That's some of the things that we found in the past that people might miss. So just make sure they have everything in there properly. And then once approved, the students will begin the testing process. Just like they have in the past, they'll be prompted with that do-do-do-do-do, like test your sound or test your video and all of that before they start their assessment. If you are in an active session and you're ready to stop the session, you're going to click stop. And then it will basically say, are you sure you want to do this? And you say yes. And that's the end of the session. If you've created an active session, as soon as you stop the session, that session is no longer able to be reopened with that particular ID. You could start another session up again with that same assessment and students can continue on if they haven't finished, but that active session that you had before is done. So that's the active sessions. Are there questions or anything you have, Anne, about?
Oh, well, we have a question, but it is so far. She just wants to confirm. Is it required for all people to take the certification course? The frequently asked questions page says that it is only required.
Yeah, it says it's recommended. It is required. So to be clear, if you have not taken the TA certification course, you will not be able to get into the TA interface and administer tests. So you have to take that the TA course in order for you to be flagged as completed in that course, and then that kind of opens up the door to the TA interface. So it is required.
Thank you. And did you find out about the science?
Yeah, so my pat answer before is correct. Right now, technically, I don't believe there are any listening items in grade 11 science. However, that's a rotating item bank. So there's a very good chance at some point there could be. So the recommendation is that students should have headphones just in the off chance there is a listening item in that particular test. But as I looked through the bank right now, I'm not seeing a listening item for 11, but that doesn't mean that there won't be one put in later. So probably okay to not have headphones, but we recommend that you do have headphones.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Just to reiterate, anybody who is going to be starting a session and then letting the children in, admitting students needs to do the certification process. It's not, if they're proctors in a room, it doesn't matter if they're just watching students, but if you're going to start the session, you have to take the certification process.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So now I want to talk a little bit about creating an upcoming session for your summative administration. It is a very similar process in that you're going to get a session ID and all of that, but creating an upcoming session is you're able to put in a testing window and all of that. So I just want to make sure to go through this. So you're going to click upcoming session. You'll choose schedule a session here. And then this is where you have up to 14 days of a date range to be able to say, this is the window in which I want to administer this particular summative assessment. So you'll choose your date range and then you'll click next. Again, we're talking summatives today. You could use an upcoming session for the interim and modulars as well, but again, summative today. Again, use the plus sign. That's our rule of thumb. Anytime there is one, you use it. Once you choose an assessment, it will show up also on the right-hand side. Now what we need to do here is we need to enter a session name. I make sure when you're putting your session names in that you make it pretty identifiable, because if you have more than one session, you want to remember which one you have for which particular assessment. So this is grade 5 ELA summative. And then you want to, again, keep the session type to in person. Again, if you choose remote, it's going to give you that same error. And then you want to click Save Session. As soon as you click Save Session, it's going to pop up with this particular information here. So you've got your session ID there. Just so you know, for the summatives, you cannot use that URL. You're going to think, oh, you don't have to use the secure browser. You actually do. An error will occur when you try to use that URL, and students won't be able to use it for a summative assessment. So once you're here, it shows an upcoming session. You have a couple of options here. This share link, it's a little bit tricky because we aren't actually sharing a link, but you can use it to be able to get your session ID beforehand. So you can just have it to be able to put up on the board or what have you. You are also able to double check or edit the assessment that you have chosen. So you can choose edit and it will bring you right through those pages again and allow you to make any changes if you need to make changes. You can obviously delete it as well. That's one of the options here. So when you are ready to start an upcoming session, what happens is depending on your date range that you put in, once the upcoming session is in that range and that date is now here, it will show up in your active sessions. So because I have this here, it shows up in my active sessions because the date is within this range. Today's date would be within this range. So once I'm ready to administer the assessment, I am going to click on Join. This is where people have the hardest time because sometimes they get the session ID beforehand, they put it up on the board, they get kids into the secure browser and they wonder why they can't get in. What happens is that if you don't join it, this is an error that students will get. And so this is what a lot of phone calls and information has been coming in. This is what happens. This is the error that the students will get, and I'll say no tests are available at this time. And you'll think, well, yes, they are because it's an active session. It's not until you join it. So once you join it as a teacher, this page will come up again, and it's the same sort of process. You want to make sure to give students this session ID. They'll log into the secure browser. They put in this information here. They say, yep, this is me. They choose the assessment. And then they are waiting for approval from you again. Because the upcoming session is now active, it does all the same things as a regular active session does as soon as you join it. So you'll go here and you'll approve your students. And then again, once they're approved, they begin their testing process and they're good to go. If you want to stop that session, you click on stop and yes, confirm you do want to stop. And then this session is still available now in my active session because it's still in my date range. So if I want to open up that session again, I join that test again and it goes through that whole process again. Any questions about that?
There are no questions, but we do have a question.
Okay.
Is the 11th grade only taking the science part?
Yes.
Okay, that was easy.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So science, 11th grade is science only. For grades 3 through 8, it's ELA, including the reading and the writing, and then math. And then for grades 5 and 8, they also do science.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
And I'm sorry, this is Melissa White. And just to clarify, those 11th graders should be taking the SAT. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, for the person that might have asked the question, those 11th grade students take the SAT, and that's how we look at their ELA and math is through that assessment.
Right.
Thanks.
Great. So as far as the SAS system, 11th grade only takes science, but they do have to take the SAT. Great. I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And I'm also, since we're on questions, gonna pop in here and say there was a couple of questions in the chat. One was, where do kids get test tickets? And I think we're gonna cover that later, but the quick answer is that they're in Tide.
Yeah.
And then the question, somebody just wanted to know if there would be a link for the TA certification course on the portal. And that will be included in documents that come out tomorrow with all of the materials that you're going to send, but it's on the portal, just like everything else.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can show where that is as well. So
Okay. We have a more question. Is there any hands-on part to the science test?
In some of the science test is made up of what we call clusters. So there are activities that students do, but it's all online. They don't need any additional materials, for experiments or anything like that. But there is hands-on kind of experimentation through the testing system. So they don't need anything additional, but they do experiments online. So hopefully that answers the question or gets close to it.
Thank you. Okay, and then if you set up an upcoming session for math, let's say, and you plan to test 2 days within that date range, will it be the same session ID?
yes.
It can be.
Well, yeah, as long as you're joining it, as long as you don't create another session and you continue to join the same session, it's the same session ID.
But if you start an active session, when you log off of the active session, that goes away and you have to create a new one and it will be a new session ID. Can you go back to one of those? If you have an upcoming session, you can keep that the same.
Yeah, well, I thought the question, sorry, was about an upcoming session. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
the answer for
It did say upcoming.
Yeah, upcoming session, you just continue to join the same one throughout any time in that date range.
Right.
But again, if it is you create an active session, not from an upcoming, just on the fly, like the first one that I did here.
Yeah, I didn't read that. It does say upcoming.
Yeah, if you're just doing it and creating it right before the test, as soon as you stop that, the session ID goes away forever. But if you created it as an upcoming and it's got a date range here, you just join that same session.
Okay, great. And one more. I have remote kids. Do they need any materials? So,
yeah, so I guess the way that we are trying to get all kids to be able to take this assessment is in person. That is what the recommendation is, and that is what the requirement is. However, we understand that there are some remote kids that will not be coming in and may want to opt out or do not want to be, their parents or for whatever reason do not want them in school to be able to do it. And there is
Heather, actually, maybe I should answer that question.
Yeah.
So what we're offering right now is students should be coming in person to take the assessments. Some schools will have the opportunity to administer the New Hampshire SAS remotely, but it's going to be a limited window at the end of May. Schools need to contact me directly, and I'll put my information into the chat so that we can set up specific training sessions and more of a meeting almost to go through all the security parameters. So this is not something we're blanketly giving to the entire state. But if your administration, it does have students that they want to administer this assessment remotely to, and that parents want to participate, then you can work with me directly to set that up. But we are not requiring schools to administer the New Hampshire SAS remotely. So that piece of it, you do not have to, but if your school is interested, just contact me directly to talk about that. But for the purposes of this training, we're going to just focus on this being administration of the New Hampshire SAS assessment in person, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. It sounds like she clarified a little, and I don't know if
okay.
it's the right thing, but it may be that it's they're going to be in a school, but not her school. But I'll check first before we continue with that one.
Mhm. And that was Melissa White, just so that I know we can't see faces or who's talking. So again, if you are trying to, for a limited number of students, you can contact Melissa White at the DOE.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. Ready to move on, Anne, or do you have another
Yeah, we
question?
do have more, but they're all the same. Oh, wait, yeah, so she was asked, they're going to be in an SAU building. So they are not remote, they're just in a different building. But they do need their test ticket, or the information at least from the test ticket. And anything that their accommodations or designated supports say they need, that's all they'll need.
And their
Reception ID.
and their device that they're taking it on should have
Okay.
the secure browser.
Right, and they should have their device with them. Right, thank you.
All right.
All right.
So moving on from there, I wanted to show you all how to print out the test tickets. So we're going to go into the Tide system here. So to log into Tide, it's the same. You're going to go right onto the portal and you're going to go to that New Hampshire portal, cambiummass.com. You're going to choose Test Administration. This is that 9-box page. We're going to go into Tide right now, but for the person asking about the test administration certification, this is where you go. So there's no link, but this is the button that you will click on to take that test administration certification. So for right now, because we're talking about the test tickets, we're going to go into Tide. You're going to need to log in. And then on this page here, you're going to choose print test tickets. And then once you choose that, you're going to choose print from student list. If you wanted to print a specific roster, if you were already rostered, you can, but I'm going to show you just how to do it from the student list. You can choose your district and school, depending on what you're able to see within Tide. You might not need, it might automatically default for you. And then you can choose the specific grade level and then search. So this would be everybody for a 5th grade. I would view results. And then the way that you can choose the students that you want to print is you can either one by one click the little check boxes there, or you can click the check at the top of the column and it will check all of the students. It will select them all. So once you have your students selected that you want to print, you click on the little print button here and you choose my selected test tickets. And then you're able to choose how you want them to be printed, what the layout is, if it's 5x2, 3x2, 2x2, or 1x1. It's already got test tickets checked off there. And so you're just going to click print. It does get a little bit confusing because as soon as you click print, it looks like it goes away, but it's down on the bottom here. So it's been downloaded as a PDF. And as soon as you click on that to open it, this is just a sample of what it will look like, but this is what a test ticket would look like. And you would be able to cut them up or however you wanted to print them and get them to your students. So again, students need the exact spelling of their first name and they need their SSID. In the TA interface, you can also, where I have my session ID, there's this little area here that says student lookup. So if you are right now in your classroom thinking, okay, I'm having a student that's really having a hard time logging in and you haven't been able to figure it out, you can look them up there just to make sure that you have all of their information and are able to get them in. All right. Any questions about printing test tickets?
Nope, not yet.
Okie doke.
Don't be shy.
All right. So this next session, we had some feedback about people wanting to know a little bit about accommodations. So I wanted to put in some just general information about accommodations in here so that you could know sort of what's available and the types of accommodations there are. So the first thing is there are 3 types of accommodations. There's universal tools, there are designated supports, and there are actual accommodations. So I'm going to go into each one of these just so that you can understand a little bit more about them. So for universal tools, this is the information that we have about them. They are features that are available for everybody. They're available to all students, and they are not modifications, just so that you can understand that they're different from modifications. So here's some descriptions and what the tools are that are the different universal tools or supports that they have in here. So I'm not going to spend too much time going through each one of these to tell you what each one of them is, but again, there's the tool in the description. For designated supports, the designated supports are available for use by only students for whom the need has been identified by a team of educators. A lot of people have asked about the text-to-speech designated support, and it is available for math, but you need to figure out which students you deem having it be necessary for them. You need to make sure you get it, talk with your team about it. It is not a universal tool. So this is, at no time should designated supports be used as a universal tool. So it's not like you would say, let's, for example, the text-to-speech for math, you would not necessarily do it as a blanket for every single third or fourth grader that you have. You need to just figure out who it would need to be used by and put it in as a support for them. So this is just a little bit more information about designated supports. Here are what are called embedded designated supports. So these are in the system, embedded into the actual portal. So here's some of that. This is the text-to-speech that I was talking about there. And then some of the others. And then these are the non-embedded designated supports. So these are things that are not embedded in the portal, but you would be able to use as a designated support. I'll just give you a second to look at those. And then accommodations. This is what a lot of us are more used to. These are for the kids who either have an IEP or a 504. These are these particular types of accommodations are for students who have those particular plans in place. So these are specifically for kids on an IEP or 504s, like I said, but also this is interesting. So students who have a physical injury, they may be able to get some of these accommodations, like a scribe or something else, because of an injury that they have and they're not able to access a system like they normally would. So there are two different types. There's embedded accommodations. So here's those. And then there's the non-embedded. This was that the hundreds grid that we were talking about that's only available for grades 4 through 8 for math. And so that's what we have for accommodations. If you are entering accommodation information, there's usually a TIDE administrator in your building that does this, but so they are all entered within TIDE in a couple of different ways. You can enter them for an individual student. And so they would go into that student and edit that particular student and enter in the accommodations, or it can be for multiple students and they can upload a test setting for specific students and put their accommodations in that way. For any type of accommodation, this needs to be done prior to testing. so that the embedded supports and accommodations are present in the student's test. Usually the rule of thumb, I believe, is that you do it at least the day prior so that they have overnight to be able to make sure that everything's in the system. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but that has been sort of the rule of thumb that has been followed in the past. So any questions about accommodations?
There are no more questions about nothing right now.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to point you next in the direction of some other resources that are available on the portal. I feel like as teachers, we go in, we do our test administration certification, we do the test administration, we get our kids in, we approve kids. And there are a lot of different resources available on the portal. I wanted to show you some of the manuals, but I want to go in and show you some other things that might be of interest as well. So some of the test administration resources, again, you're going right to that portal, choosing test administration. And now on this 9-box page, you'll choose test administration resources. Right here, you'll see that there are some different areas that you can choose from. I'm choosing the system manuals and user guides here. And this is sort of an abbreviated version that I put on a screenshot here. There's the TA user guide. So there's a whole user guide for people who are going to be test administrators. There's the TIDE user guide, so anything you need to know about TIDE. There's also the New Hampshire SAS Accommodations guide. I showed you quite a bit of that in my screenshots. I took a lot of what the embedded and non-embedded supports were and just the general information about each type of accommodation I took from that SAS Accommodations guide. And then the test administration manual will help you with anything you need for administering the state assessments. So those are all available right on the portal. I do want to show you, I'm looking at the time, and I do want to show you, unless there's some really...
we do have a question. Can I?
Okay.
It's about how do students get to the speech to text. If the student is using speech to text, speech to text or text to speech, probably. Is there a speaker icon similar to Google Docs? So I think it's speech to text. So what will that look like on the student side?
So yeah, this is Tom from Cambium. So speech to text is a, it's not built into the testing system. So we have a way that our testing system with the secure browser, the idea of the secure browser locks everything else out. So a student can't go to the internet or use a calculator or get any sort of help like that. So with speech to text, since that's an external piece of equipment and software that's interfacing with our secure browser, we have what we call permissive mode, which allows some systems to interact with our testing systems. Google seems to be kind of the default speech to text engine right now, and it's not 100% supported by our secure browser. Our suggestion would be to have the student prior to their summative testing, either through a benchmark modular or an interim test, have them test out their particular setup with the secure browser and with whatever tools they're using to see if that works. There's not a universal, it's going to look like this or it's going to look like that. It's going to be dependent on that third-party piece of software and or hardware that's going to be plugged into our secure browser. So the short answer is I don't know what that speaker will look like, what the icon will look like. It's probably best to give it a shot with, before the summative testing starts, since the interims and the modulars are available right now. That's probably the best place to kind of test it out. So that would be my suggestion.
Hey, Tom, this is Evelyn from Cambium. I am going to just piggyback onto Tom there and offer one clarification. We do provide an embedded dictation tool for the writing portion of the test only. And that is embedded in the test for students who are taking the test online and who require that accommodation. And as part of their hardware check at the beginning of the test, they will be asked to test their microphone and make sure that that dictation tool is working. But if they do need speech to text or dictation on any other test on the reading portion of the ELA, on the math, on the science, then as Tom said, they do need to use a third-party software and they would need to have permissive mode set up. And unfortunately, we can't support the dictation on Chromebooks, so it would need to be, generally speaking, a PC.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, Anne, before I kind of move into some of the other
Nope, not right now.
sources?
Nope.
So on sort of the topic of resources that are available on the portal, in this test administration area, again, we have this 9-box page. Here's where we're going for being able to set up a test session or anything like that. We have, here's your certification in TIDE. We also have, this is where the test administration resources were that I was just showing you. I was going under system manuals and user guides. If you go under general information, there's a lot of information just about New Hampshire SAS here too. So this is the general information about the New Hampshire SAS assessments here. There's some blueprints, just some auto scoring FAQs. A lot of people have questions about the auto scoring for writing and all of that. But also for teachers, there's all of this information that whenever I'm talking to sites and to different teachers in different schools, they don't necessarily know that this exists. So I just want to show you, again, we're in general information for teachers. These are all performance level descriptors for each grade level. So if I chose grade 5 here, this is telling me for this particular, let me just make it a little bigger. For this particular standard, this is what a child is doing who's below proficient, approaching proficient, or highly proficient. So this tells you for ELA, all of the different standards and what students are doing to meet that proficiency. So I really encourage you to take a look at these. Not necessarily right the second before the summatives because it'll stress you out a little bit, but just know that they're here. And it's the same thing for math. They have the same thing for math, and then they have science for elementary, middle, and high school. They're all sort of set up the same way where it gives you the standard and what students are doing that at different levels that are meeting for that standard. So there's those, and then there's some rubrics that they have here for writing rubrics, so you can see what their rubrics look like. So for the summative, if you want to look at a grades 3 through 5, this would be information or explanatory. It tells you how kids are doing what they need to do to be able to score a certain way on the summative. So it's really helpful for teachers to be able to understand what the requirements are to get a specific score on the writing as well. This is one of the last things I'll show you is this vocabulary list. This is for each grade level. And you will see what the vocabulary that will be used. Any of this vocabulary on this page here is what they might encounter within the New Hampshire SAS assessments. So it's really helpful for students to understand what each one of these means to make sure that they know what would be required of them on the assessment. So each grade level has its own vocabulary list. So that's sort of the last thing I wanted to show on that page, but there's a lot of really great information on here. So check it out. All right. So back to this. Any other questions that we have?
Nope, there are no other questions.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, just a little bit of information. Don't drop off yet. We do have a quick survey. It's just a couple of questions that I'm going to get to in just a minute, but we also have some other webinars that are coming up. So these are all of our upcoming webinars that you may want to tap into and register for. So there's those. We have all of our past webinars are also available for you to watch on our YouTube channel. They're all free and you're able to see them. If you just go to YouTube and you type in demonstrated success, they're all on there. If you want to know any sort of other information, we have a program that we've been working on this year that we've been looking at the New Hampshire SAS Modular Assessments. They're a really fantastic way to check to see where your students are. They're shorter than the interims and the summatives. So if you have any questions or want to know anything about the modular assessments, you can contact me. My information is at the end of this presentation. You can also follow us on any of these social media platforms. We've got some really fun sort of tips that are up there now, general information for teachers and articles and some really great stuff. So check it out. This is me here. I'm Heather Jenkins. So if you want to contact me, that's where you would contact me. And then I'm going to put in the chat the link to the survey. So if you just check the chat, you can click on that. It's a little survey monkey. It'd be super helpful for you, for us, if you would give us the feedback. We're always looking to see how we can improve. So that's that. Anne, is there other questions that are popping up?
Somebody asked for Melissa's email address, and she typed it in wrong, or it came up wrong. It's Melissa. I'm going to put it in the chat. Melissa White. It's Melissa White at DOE-NH. Well, you'll see it. And
I was going to say, and there is also a question in the chat. Somebody said they have more questions about speech to text.
yeah, I was going to say, does Jackie, do you want us to unmute you so you can ask these questions, or do you have some questions you want to type? I'm assuming you want us to unmute you when we're done, which is fine. The chat isn't showing anything. Interesting.
I think you sent it to panelists and not all attendees.
Yeah.
Oh, I did. Let me send it. Sorry.
I got you.
Thank you, Evelyn. I appreciate it.
Yes, SAS last fall. Am I still certified to administer the test?
Nope. Sorry. Yeah, you have to, unfortunately, every year we have,
No,
you have to
level.
retake. Yeah,
If you took it in
PA
fall of
certification
2020, you're fine.
Yeah,
If you took it in
last
fall of
calendar year,
2019.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, last admin year, if it was 1920, yes, you have to retake it. But to everybody else's point, if it was literally last year in 2020 and you did take it in 2020, you're good for this what we call admin year. So that's 2021. So hopefully I just made it even more confusing than it needed to be.
If you log on to the system and you go look at assessment viewing application, and if you can get in there,
Yeah, there you go.
She said thank you, so it must have made sense the first time.
Okay, good.
All right. Any other questions? Was there somebody who wanted to be unmuted so that we could answer?
Yeah, it looks like Jackie wanted to be unmuted.
Okay. For some reason, I don't have access to be able to do any of that. I can't see any of the Q&A again.
I'll get it
on my screen.
Jen is asking if there's a way to tell if your certification's updated. I think you probably entered that before I spoke, but if you go in and click on the assessment viewing application, if it allows you in, your certification is up to date.
And you can always contact the help desk and they can check for you too.
Right, that's true. Okay, I will unmute you, Jackie, even though you just said you would write. Where are you? Find you first. Jackie. Hey, I don't see you. Are you at the end? Anybody see her?
I see Joyce has her hand up. I can see that.
Okay. Oh, there's Jackie. Oh, there she is. So I'm gonna have, or allow, I just made you a panelist, but I'm gonna allow you to talk. Okay. Hi, Jackie. I'm listening.
Hi,
Hi.
thanks. So I'm the tied administrator test coordinator for my school. It's a K through 3 school. For our third graders, a lot of them, this is their first time testing, and I have about a dozen IEP students who have speech to text in their IEP specifically for writing. And they've been using Google Docs since, you know, we went remote for that, and they're proficient in it. And I even talked through with teachers and service providers just to double, triple check and make sure they understand like how the student needs to use it, and that they have to say, you know, period, and really check their work. And for all those teachers or all those kids, the teachers were like, yep, they need this accommodation to allow them to show what they know. So they have Chromebooks. We have one-to-one Chromebooks, and the software they use is Google Docs. So I just wanted to know from the panel, what's your suggestions of the best way for them to do this?
Hi, this is Evelyn. So if they're using it only for the writing portion of the test, my advice would be to try to use the embedded speech to text tool. So you should be able to set that in Tide. As Tom said earlier, absolutely, we would recommend that you have them practice it on one of the modulars, just so that they know how it works. But it should be very similar to what they're used to with Chromebooks and with Google Docs. So it should be a lot similar to the interface that they're already used to. And that's part of why we embedded it. Just for a little like more technical information.
So the embedded is supported on Chromebooks? Because I thought you said the embedded was not.
The embedded is supported on Chromebooks. It's the third-party speech to text tools that aren't, because as you probably know with Chromebooks, you can't install software for a lot of software.
Yeah.
And so that's why.
Okay, and I put in all of their accommodations today, and I'm meeting with doing like a mini training with staff tomorrow, and I was gonna have students start practicing the modules on Friday. So this is perfect.
Great, that sounds perfect.
Well, thank you so much. This was a really great refresher, and the panel did a great job. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you're, you know, just to plug our help desk again, if you run into any sort of technical issues with the testing system, please contact that help desk. That help desk, pretty much whenever they get a question, they contact Evelyn and myself right away anyway. So it's almost like you're talking to us directly, and we'd be more than happy to help you walk through that any sort of technical difficulties you might run across. So please keep that help desk email address and phone number handy.
They're very, very helpful, and they answer right away. They always answer the phone. And they're all really nice. So really use the phone number or email, either one. And Joyce, I'm going to allow you to talk. Hi, Joyce.
Mine just keeps showing a lowered hand, so I'm not hitting it. I'm sorry.
Oh, you don't have a question? Okay,
Sorry
that's all
about
right.
No, I'm sorry. You guys have done a good job.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, if anybody would like to ask a question, it looks like if you're not all set, Jen, let us know and I can show you where that is on the 9-box page for the assessment viewing application.
Any more questions?
I think for some reason, I can't see the question, but I can see the chat. And I can
thank you on the questions. Chat, I don't think there are any others.
All right. Well, then I think we're probably ready to sign off. We appreciate everybody coming today, and anybody who filled out the survey. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, contact us here at any of these sort of email addresses, or the Cambium help desk, or Melissa White at the DOE. So good luck with everything in the summatives.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Nice job.
All right. Take care.
Bye.